welcome to episode 12 of Floating Through Film. On this week, we are talking about um, two of my favorite Chaplin movies, which I've said that about all these movies so far. But I'm going to mention in a moment why these two movies were the reason why I picked to do a Chaplin series in the first place. But yeah, those two movies are Monsieur Verdoux and Limelight. And basically, just to keep it short, the reason why this made me want to pick the series in the first place was I've been saying this. I kind of mentioned this earlier about Women of Paris, but I just can't believe this is in the same filmography as the guy that made The Kid, or especially the shorts.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it even more special this time is watching all the shorts. And we've been kind of mentioning even like when we talked about The Great Dictator and Modern Times, where even if it's not like the shorts really kind of it's more narrative based or story based, there's still a lot of the tramp aspects of the comedy aspects of it, but these two movies are like on just a different level of storytelling. It's just proof that when you look back at the movies where when you remember the Gold Rush, you might just think of a lot of the comedy and you might just think of the tramp being funny, but it's really because the storytelling is so good. It's why you remember a lot of these movies, and these movies kind of prove that to me in a lot of ways because they're not leaning on the comedy aspects, right? And also what makes it interesting to me is a lot of people actually don't like the talking aspects of it too. A lot of people do say these are just weaker movies and stuff, so like Luke over here. So actually, before we get started,
throw him under the bus in the beginning. I see that.
I don't even think I introduced you guys, so let me introduce you guys real quick. We have Luke over here.
Hi.
And Blake.
What's up?
And I think we can just get started. Yeah, well, we already kind of got started anyway, so let's start off with Monsieur Verdoux, 1946, I'm pretty sure. 47. Wow, I just letterbox say 1947. Yeah. So, let's start with Blake. Monsieur Verdoux.
So I told you after watching it that this made me feel like it was Hitchcock directing Chaplin. And that's because it feels like a really good thriller, honestly. Like a really good Hitchcockian thriller. And that's surprising coming from Chaplin, who I honestly didn't think he had something like this in him. Mm-hmm. Or I didn't know he wanted to attempt something like this, I guess. But the fact that he did is impressive. And it works really well. I love this movie a lot. And I think it's because of the ending, honestly. I don't know, that ending is really good. He started with that ending, as we know it, the Chaplin today, Monsieur Verdoux. He started with that movie, or with that scene, the ending scene, so that he could get that out of the way, because he wanted to know where it was going to end, where this character was going to end up, so he could just act the way he's supposed to act the rest of the movie.
Literally a character that knows his fate.
Yeah.
He literally wanted to feel like that.
And because you get that the entire movie, and that's one reason why it works so well, is because you get the feeling that Monsieur Verdoux knows he knows he's gonna die eventually. Yeah. He knows something's gonna happen eventually, and throughout the entire movie, it's just him basically coming to terms with that fate that's gonna happen.
I mean, business is a ruthless business, right?
It's that's not business is a ruthless business.
Yeah, that's what he says.
Is that what he says?
Yeah. Let me look it up to make sure, but you can keep it. What else?
No, yeah. So I just like how I honestly just like how it. I even just like how it opens, with him just saying, "The life of Bluebeard is not for everyone, but it's the life I had to live." And I don't want to get too far in the movie, but whenever I first fully got invested into this character was whenever he first met his family for the first time, his actual family, the Verdoux family. Because that was the first scene where I was like, oh, okay, so this is why he's actually doing it. Mm-hmm. This is the reason why. And it works really well because none of his other wives in this movie, you can tell he hates them. Kind of. He's only using them for money, like he's supposed to, like a Bluebeard does. But then with his actual family, you can actually see the love come out, and you can see why he needs to do this because.
I mean, this is sorry.
No. It's good, and it's just. You can see why he needs to do this, and his financial situations from the stock market crash. He talks about a shit ton of stuff in this, but
he does.
A lot of societal stuff going on in this one also. But that's just what I wanted to start with was that, I guess.
Okay. All right. Well, what I thought about this movie, I love this movie as well, and everything that Blake said I do agree with. But really, I just think this is a great dark comedy that honestly, I wish he did more of these types of movies that like, you know, they're obviously, you know, it's just a more darker, you know, toned, comedic, you know, more types of just these movies, and it was all very engaging throughout, I thought, and I especially loved my favorite part about it was just how he just kept on playing different roles throughout of him, like of different professions, and he like did it so well. It kind of there's a Jacques Tati short where he does kind of that same way. Like he teaches like students like how to be like different things. It kind of reminded me of that, and that's why I love it. Like probably my favorite thing about it. But I liked how throughout this whole movie you could definitely still see it's like, you know, it's just your friend. It's still Chaplin though. Like specifically like that scene where he takes in the homeless girl.
Yep.
That definitely reminded me of like something that like you'd see in an old Chaplin movie, and even through in that scene, like the music that plays is like it kind of sounds like a reworking of the Modern Times theme. So yeah, that's what I noticed about it, and yeah, I love this movie honestly.
So this is kind of how I want to talk. I'll probably talk about this movie throughout, and so I want to ask you guys what you guys think about this. You know, I have to mention Bazin because he wrote essays on both of these that I read, so I'll probably mention those a few times throughout this. But he made a really good point where you can kind of see it throughout the movie. It's like kind of obvious, but the way he pointed it out made it really obvious. Not obvious, but it made it interesting way to think about the movie. Where basically the point he made was Monsieur Verdoux is the opposite of the tramp. He's basically like how the tramp fits in society. Just take how the tramp would be and make his exact opposite, right? He calls it how if the tramp is unadapted, Monsieur Verdoux is like super adapted. You know, like he treats everything like business. Like, you know how you mentioned earlier about with how he treats the wives versus the wife, and the fact that we can even mention it like that, we know what we're talking about, right? Because all the other wives for him are just business transactions.
Yes,
literally, right?
Literally just business transactions.
He's like, and it's because it's a reason. It's one of the main reasons why I love this movie, where it's like one of the criticisms of you could make of early Chaplin movies are they're maybe too hopeful or too sympathetic, right? Like, you know, I wouldn't make that.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah. Especially maybe the Gold Rush ending, maybe.
Yeah, the Gold Rush one would be the one that you could make.
But still, this one is like the other way, right? You're like, he went almost the exact opposite. Like he's really cynical, right? And like we'll talk about the ending, but that courtroom scene though. And the stuff he says in that, basically, right? But it's kind of how, and the way that I think about that movie related to that point is how this is basically if the tramp has basically had to adapt to society, you know? Like, because what makes the tramp so special in his early movies is he can never really fit in to the environment around him, right? He's kind of have to be a loner just because if he's around society long enough, he's gonna mess up. Yeah. And he's gonna get kicked out, right? Yeah. And he'll have to be on his way. But this is like the opposite. Monsieur Verdoux knows exactly like what to do in every social situation. You know, to the point where he's sending flowers to a woman like $2,500, and he calls it an investment, literally, because he knows it's gonna pay off, right? Yeah. He gets married. You know, like he knows what he's doing. Yes. But basically, like, and it's kind of like. When we talk about movies working on two levels, the whole level of like just how you can see how Chaplin was kind of seeing how society was going, where everything was being treated as a business transaction, right? Yes. Only related with money, and we'll also talk about that with the ending with the girl, how she's supposed to be his hope, right? Like he's about to kill her, and he decides not to, right? Yeah. Because he sees some hope in her, like, oh, she still loves her husband that was about to die. Yeah. Like that's like you were saying, the old Chaplin, right? Yeah. That kind of hopefulness. But then the fact that when she comes back, her newfound hope is that she's married a munitions manufacturer. Yeah. And she literally says, "Yeah, it's about to be a good time for business because World War II is about to start." Yep. You know, or I think World War One.
It was World War II because it was after the Depression. So
okay, yes, you're right.
Like after the stock market, because they showed all those.
Or they basically say a war's about to start. Yeah, it's like good for business. And that's literally when he decides to go back in and turn himself in. It's
true.
Right? Yeah. He's literally given up hope at that point. It's like
and the way he turns himself in is so funny because that's a very tramp thing. Just like like looking around. That's what I'm saying.
Like, it's still the tramp. Yeah. And in the Chaplin Today of this one, I think Chabrol was in this one. Yeah, he mentions literally how this Monsieur Verdoux is like proof that there's like avatars of the tramp. Yeah. You know, and this is just one of his another avatars, and it's like the exact opposite. You know, what if like the tramp was like super adapted to society? You know, he knows what he's doing, but still, it's like it's also kind of sad because it's one that's given up hope, right? It's given up that kind of freedom, kind of creativity.
He's given up his hope of humanity. You know?
He has. He has.
Which is so central to the tramp character.
But just the fact that this came out 2 years after the atom bomb, right? Like, and that's a reason why a lot of people didn't like this movie too. And like, it got him on that path of getting it made in America for a long time.
Ridiculously, but yes.
Yeah, because like, this is kind of related, but he literally said, like, he wrote an essay at one point saying how, because he lived in America basically from his 20s on, right, for a long time, but he never became a citizen here, and that's part of what got him kicked out in the first place, right? Like, people were suspicious of that, and he's like, it's because I don't want to be a citizen of any one country. He considered himself, you know, the classic "I'm a citizen of the world" kind of thing. Yeah. But he literally took it literally.
I think in the Limelight Chaplin a Day thing, they actually have that quote, or maybe it was the Monsieur Verdoux. But it was like he was, or no, it was the Limelight one because they were talking about him actually like not being allowed back in America. Mm-hmm. But his quote was, "I'm an internationalist because nationalism causes wars." Yeah, and it's like that's true. That's a great quote. It's a great quote.
So based on that, let's just get into the movie. Like, what are the scenes that stick out to you, or what do you want to talk about?
I do love. I mean, the scene I think we were talking about earlier, where the people when you first meet him, I believe, when they come to the house and like they're like, oh, I forgot her name, like the woman, you know, she needs to sign this, and then he goes up, he's like, okay, I'll get it, and like he goes up the stairs and pretends like it's
perfectly executed. Right?
Yeah, it's a great opening sequence, like that introduces the character, and then he counts money really fast too after that.
And I love that little bit because it's kind of like it's a little proof of even that character's former life coming out. He was a bank clerk for 30 years, right? And that's, you know, obviously you probably learned that being.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't even make that connection whenever I was watching it.
So. But it's kind of like that little proof of his life coming out in these business transactions still, right? Yeah. Like, because basically Verdoux is someone who's, at least in the public sphere, has lost his humanity, right? He just sees it all as business. He doesn't care. Like, like it's not like he's even negative towards a lot of these women. It's just like he's kind of like apathetic.
He's just business.
Yeah, just business. Right?
Literally just business.
Yeah. Except for, you know, we'll have to talk about the Hitchcock scene, and I feel like that was what you were gonna have to mention at some point, but because that one, it seems like you might be enjoying it, you know, with the whistling and everything.
No, that one definitely.
The poetry and everything. Like, it's a great shot, by the way. Like,
it is.
But, the scene you mentioned, like that scene just kind of proves like the perfect. It's like his first introduction. I'm pretty sure, right?
It's the first time you meet him.
Like,
so
you just need one little scene just to tell what kind of person he is.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right? What about you, Blake? Did you have any scenes like?
Well, that was the first one, but like after we see him with his first wife, we literally see him. That's the first and only time they show him with his actual family, is after that scene. Is after he meets with his first wife, unless I'm remembering wrong. Unless he sees his family some other time, but like that's the only time he sees his family, like the Verdoux family. And like that was a scene that stood out to me very early on because this was like it was that moment that I was like, yes, this is the reason why we are supposed to care about Verdoux himself.
It humanizes him in a way.
It humanizes him in a way that needed to happen for you to buy into this movie, you know, about this man doing this stuff. So,
no, I agree. What do I want to mention first? I kind of like see this time watching it because I'd already seen it once. I don't even think about the story as much. It's like when I think more of just like the feeling I get of that business nature to it.
Yeah.
Because especially watching all these Chaplin movies back to back, like, you know, watching The Tramp is he has your emotions in a good way the whole time. You know, like you're on his side and he's gonna make some mistakes, but you're like always on his side kind of thing. This one is weird because watching it, you're still on his side. Which is its own kind of thing. Where like it's almost like you're on the side of the serial killer movies.
Yeah.
But it's different though, right? You're not like on his side emotionally because literally he doesn't have any emotions basically. You know, throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
But okay, if I had to think of what I think about this time in terms of scenes or characters, I think of the other woman that he's not able to kill.
Yeah,
because that's where you really get some of the Tramp actually bits, the comedy aspects of it with her.
Like the fishing.
Yes, the fishing scene I was really thinking of. Yeah, but just her, like she's the only one that's actually on his level in terms of funniness throughout the movie. I would say.
It's fair, yeah. I would say so.
Even
yeah.
that the other woman that takes her money out,
Yeah.
and she's always like, I can't believe I did this. I
Yeah.
can't believe I did this. It's like she knows she's about to die too, like almost.
Yeah, and see, that's like, and that's the reason why he made those women that way, is because he didn't want us to feel sympathy for them either, you know, because, I mean, he didn't want you to feel sympathy for the women he was going to kill in this movie,
No.
and that's the reason why he made his first wife so shrill and angry at him all the time. Like, it's literally what you would think of like, if you've been married for like 30 years, like, that's what you think of, you know, like this angry shrew that's just going to like shrill at you the whole time. And that's literally kind of how he acts during the entire scenes with her. Is like, he's like, yes, dear.
Yeah. So what you mentioned right there is a really good point. It's kind of like proof that Chaplin was just a master filmmaker and not just kind of using the tramp to draw motion. Where the tramp, like you said, it's weird because the Monsieur Verdoux really does not do anything necessarily that you would like. Like, he comes in saying, "Oh, I haven't been here in 3 months. Go take your money out," and you're still on his side.
Exactly.
You know, it's like how are we on this guy's side when you're describing the story? It makes no sense. Like, even if the woman is like nagging, she should be. You know?
Yeah, she should be.
Like, all of them have a point.
Yes, but I think like the reason why we're so much on his side is because of the family scene, and because it's set during the Depression. Like, like if you have a family during the Depression and you don't have a job, like, you're literally fucked, basically. You know, like, this is the only way he could think of to survive, was this. And there are people like that. Like, this is the only way they do survive. I mean, not like they don't. Yes. I mean, there are people that do kill their spouses. Like, this is what they do. There are still Bluebeards in the world, but hopefully not that many.
It's harder to get away with it.
It is harder to get away.
He never humanizes. He never humanizes himself to the point where you're like actively caring about it, because obviously murder is not okay.
Yeah, I think no, exactly. I think he humanizes him to the point of the way he does it is because of the business transaction. Like, the logical viewpoint he comes from is the reason why you kind of are never against him in this movie, in my opinion at least, because especially in that, I don't want to jump so far ahead, but especially in that last speech, whenever he's talking about, maybe it's not the last speech, whenever he's in the prison, whenever he's talking about, if you kill millions, you're a hero, but if you kill one, you're a villain. It's it's just that logical viewpoint, and it really is just because of the family scene that even that point comes bears fruit, basically, because he's only doing this because he has to survive. Like this is his way of surviving. And
that's basically the theme of all of Chaplin, especially the tramp, right? He's just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. It really does make sense when you think of the Verdoux as like just the opposite of the same character, right?
Yeah.
Because at the same day, that's why the tramp still does what he does. He's just trying to survive.
Yeah, he's just
right?
trying to survive. And it's like, no, what he's doing is not okay. But at the same time, I feel like the reason he made this about a Bluebeard is because he wanted to specifically bring into view like society and how society got to this point, to the point where someone would have to do this to survive. You know, where this is the only thing they could do to survive. So,
and
I think that's
it's like an extreme version of showing that. But
yes.
Like, what does it take to survive that kind of, especially in a world run by business, as he saw, right? And yes, his speech at the end, it kind of. We've said this about a few movies, like Great Dictator, just another movie where the speech kind of ties it all together.
Yeah.
The speech at the end of this movie definitely ties it makes the whole movie make sense. So if you're wondering what that brief pause was, Luke got the hiccups right when I finished that sentence. Well, he actually had the hiccups before that, but we were trying to ignore it.
We were trying to ignore it.
I just couldn't. So, but where we were basically was I was speaking about how the ending Monsieur Verdoux ties the whole movie together. Because he literally explains a lot of it. You know, he's explaining his thesis at the end, like a guy who's dying on his,
he's about to die.
Yeah, he's about to die, literally. So I feel like we should just, because I know you wanted to talk about. We'll just go in order. We'll go in order because there's a few major scenes, I guess, during our break that we wanted to talk about, and that first scene was the one Luke mentioned at the in your intro talking about this movie was. The scene with the girl. Yeah. When he picks her up on the street for the first time, because, I mean, at the beginning, it is the opposite of how the tramp would pick up a woman, right? Or pick up a woman, the tramp. But like, in this one, he's literally picking her up to try out experiment.
To kill her.
Yeah, to try out his new poison, right?
Yeah.
But it starts becoming, over time, like a classic tramp movie, right? The reason why he starts to find hope is because of a woman that's in need. That's literally in need, right? So. What made you want to talk about that? Like, why do you think that scene was so important?
No, so why I wanted to talk about it is because of the when he decides to he's not going to poison her, is after her talking about how she would kill for her husband if he was still alive. Like if it would have saved him, she would have killed for him, and that's what stops him because he sees this is him. Like this is the only reason he's doing what he's doing is because of his family as well. And he's killing for his family. That's why he stops killing her. That's why he didn't do it.
Yeah.
And it does give him a little bit of hope in the world that there are people somewhat like him that will do stuff like that. I guess I don't know if that's what he's saying,
but no, the whole killing that he's willing to kill for his family. That's definitely. I think he's trying to make that point where a lot of people use that as an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where literally arms manufacturers.
Yeah.
The person she marries, right? They would say the same thing. You know, I'm like.
Yeah, they would.
At least I'm supporting the good side. You know, I'm doing it for my family. I'm just feeding my family at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, I'm selling weapons during a war. You know?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to feed my family. I'm just quoting NBA players, but no. How did I even go there?
How'd you go there?
Yes.
I mean, we were just talking about the girl.
Okay.
Yeah. The girl wanting to kill.
No, but what I really enjoy about that scene is that he doesn't poison her. Right, because it gives the movie throughout a little bit later where maybe he is going to turn good, you know, he has a chance. But I think maybe it's the next scene where he kind of gives that up, but maybe a couple scenes after.
I mean, not really gives it up, but yeah, he wants to try out his new poison, you know,
No, but I'm saying the end, how that scene ends.
What do you mean
how he doesn't poison her? Because he's going to poison her, but there's a point where he literally decides.
It's after she tells him that she would have killed for her husband. That's literally whenever he switches the wine glass.
Okay, I guess a better way to ask that question is: do we see that Monsieur Verdoux throughout the rest of the movie?
The one that doesn't want to kill?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's literally being he has some kind of hope in humanity where he's like, okay, I won't kill her. Because I mean, that was supposed to be another business transaction, just like anyone else, right?
It was supposed to be. I don't know. Is there?
I really don't. I don't know.
Maybe the scene that he intentionally gets caught though. Would that be?
Yes, that would be another one.
Yeah.
But that's not really his hope in humanity. That's more I've
okay,
lost hope in everything.
Yeah,
So
that's to me him accepting his fate.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, that's fair.
And that actually ties into this scene. Because it was literally that scene where she tells him that she's going to marry a munitions manufacturer.
Yeah.
And he makes a joke where that's the business I should have got into. Because he makes that, you mentioned the point at the end, and that's where he speaks in the execution, where he's about to get executed where he mentions, if you kill millions, you're a hero, but if you kill one, you're a villain. Yeah. That kind of ties into what he tells her, right? Like, if he would have gotten to the manufacturer business,
literally.
You know, it would have been way better than just killing one at a time.
Yeah.
Or he's a murderer, he's a villain.
I think he still has a little bit of that hope whenever he first meets her again for the first time. And she offers to take him to that event or whatever, because he doesn't know yet that she's married to a munitions factory.
And that's right after the stock crash too.
Yeah,
right?
it is. It's after his family died also, so he probably doesn't have any hope left. And because he's very depressed in the next scene.
Yes.
Whenever he meets her, he's very depressed.
No, he does. Yep. Because he goes to that cafe a few times, and the first few times he's he's dressed up really well, literally opposite the tramp. Really good suit, everything fits perfect. But that last scene, he kind of looks really, depressed, dejected, right? Yeah.
I mean, the world beat him down.
Yeah.
Like it did a lot of people in those days, that time.
Let me ask you this question, because I have to mention the Bazin interview again, and he mentioned a theory that it might be left ambiguous on purpose. Do you think it's possible that he even killed his own family at the end after everything? After the stock crash.
That's very dark.
Yeah.
No, because do you remember when he talks to her that one scene? She says, "I would rather you just be at home and we could live in another one-bedroom apartment again." And he literally stares at her and says, "You'll never live in a one-bedroom apartment again." Yeah. But
do you think he would? I don't know if he'd resort to killing them though. I mean,
but the way he says it is it was because do you remember in the car when they're in the car talking?
Yeah.
He says something to her or maybe it's in the restaurant where he's almost kind of glad they're out of this world. Basically, that's the point he makes. He's kind of glad that they don't have to see what humanity, where society's going, kind of thing. And that's what made me think of that, where it could be he sees it as not a bad thing that he's killing them, and literally because he just gives himself up, just a few scenes later too. He had already, do you think he would have done that if his family was not dead?
No.
But if he had already given up,
Yeah, but at that point he'd already.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I guess it's kind of hard accepting. It's kind of hard accepting that because like throughout the whole movie he's killing for a business, and I don't know.
But that's what I'm saying. When his business fails, he knows he's not going to be able to. What's he going to do with his family now? You know.
I think it's definitely a reading. I think it's very dark. I don't personally think that's what he did. Like I think they probably. Well, man, I don't know.
No,
because like did they just die from
hunger?
hunger?
He definitely didn't do it.
Yeah.
If you see it as a bad thing, he definitely didn't do it. But if you see it, he sees it as a merciful thing, right? Because literally, he resigns himself to death too. Like he could have easily kept going, or at least got away.
Yeah, he could have got away for sure.
But yeah, I mean, one reading is he was like that because his family had died. But it is weird that we never see him, feel sad over the sorrow of his, not even one shot or anything of the family again or anything about the It just he mentions it. That's it.
Yeah.
And we have to just trust his word on it. Like a character we can't basically trust on his word throughout the whole movie, basically.
Yeah.
But to me, what makes it better is it really doesn't matter. Like the point is still, it's not because he did it because he was a bad person. He did it because he felt like he was doing a good thing. Yeah. And that's what kind of makes this movie so special. And we can kind of close with this. Or do we want to talk about the last scene? We should talk.
We also I don't think we mentioned the transitions with the trains.
Yeah,
okay,
that was also like Hitchcock.
Yeah, and like honestly, it kind of played into the point of it's a business,
Yeah.
and it's kind of the absurdity of it. Like it kind of illustrates how ridiculous the amount of time, like the amount he was traveling basically to do this, and it just adds to the absurdity of everything that's going on, which I really liked about it.
That's actually a good point. Yeah.
It really is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And really, because I was just going to mention, the reason why I love those train shots, it's just single shot.
Yeah.
You know exactly what's happening, right?
Yeah.
He's moving to a different house, single train shot. That's it. Oh, he's going to somewhere else. Like a modern day movie would show like 10 shots of like a person getting on the train, like saying hi to like some passenger or something, and you have to show like 4 shots of them like going on the train and then they have to get out, and he just like boom, 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 like he just because it's all business to him. It really doesn't matter like if he's going to wife A or wife B's house.
Yeah.
And I love, and what really points that out this time was, do you remember when he forgets what Madame Marnay, the woman he's been sending flowers to this whole time?
Yes, he forgets what she looks like.
Yes, he mistakes the maid for her, and then he mistakes her friend.
Yeah.
Right before, and they still decide to get married.
Yeah.
Like. But it's like he was starting to slip. Really.
Oh yeah, he was. You can tell that whenever it fully slips whenever they're at the wedding and he hears his wife. Also, he just hears her laughing. He gets like really scared for a second. He's like, oh god.
Great physical comedy in that scene.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. Speaking of physical comedy, we have to talk about. I said we were about to end, but now I'm like, no, we have to talk about like a few more scenes. So, the physical comedy, and I mentioned her earlier. The woman that won the lottery. I forgot her name in the movie.
I forgot her name too.
But anyway, yeah, you know who we're talking about. I think her name is Martha Ray in real life, but just the physical comedy in that fishing scene, but just mainly in the scenes with her too, because also when he takes the poison himself on accident, right?
Or he thinks he does, but it's just peroxide at that point.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, you're right.
It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, when the maid realizes her hair is starting to come out, she's like freaking out.
Yeah.
And then, oh no, it's a great. It's one of. It goes back to more of the little comedy gag,
No, because that's also the scene where like kind of the real Verdoux comes out. Because he's like, someone call my wife. Because he actually thinks he's about to die. He's like, someone call my wife, and she's like, I'm right here, darling.
The tramp comes out, right? The tramp comes out in that scene.
And she's like, I'm right here, darling. And he just looks at her with absolute disgust. He's like, oh god.
Oh man, no. And then we have to, because the other scene related to her is the classic fishing scene, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, that's classic.
Because in the other book I'm reading, the Art of Charlie Chaplin book, Kip Harness, he makes this point where there's a moment in that scene where he's about to, I think, choke her, and then she looks back, and he literally does the tramp thing where he's like has his like hand under his face and he's like looking all innocent.
Yes,
like
does.
Literally the tramp.
He does,
It's like the exact,
I'm about to lasso the fish.
Yeah. And it just kind of proved like really what I was gonna mention. I forgot to mention this earlier, but really why we like the character Monsieur Verdoux so much is because of the tramp, and especially if you've seen his early movies, right? Like, I don't want to just say it would not make sense if you had not seen any of the tramp movies, but you might feel very different about Monsieur Verdoux if you had like never seen another Chaplin movie, it's part of that. He knows that we're on his side. You know, he's very
Yeah.
that's why he's able to get away with all this stuff. And the tramp gags actually add to that, right? It's like, why can't he kill this one woman? Like, we're cheering for him to kill this wife, like
Yeah.
just because.
The one annoying one.
Yes, yeah.
Saved by yodelers.
Yeah.
Somehow.
And the fact that she keeps getting away with it too is kind of why I think she's like on his level. And she has a really funny quote where it's like, this could have been said by Monsieur Verdoux too, where she's like, she looks in, is during the scene where she looks into the water and she's like, oh, it's a monster. Oh no, it's me. Isn't that silly? My own reflection. like, it's like, this is the woman Verdoux can't manage to kill.
Yeah.
You know, but like, well, okay, what do you guys think about her? Or that scene anyway, the fishing scene.
I just think it's hilarious. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It is. It's a classic.
It's
movie.
a classic scene.
Okay, so we'll just go to the ending then.
Yeah.
We should. What do you think about that speech? Where does that like? Do you think that's better than the Great Dictator ending?
I mean,
It's
less
actually,
hopeful.
they're two different
It's less
speeches. I
hopeful.
mean, you can't. It's hard to compare them to because
I mean, it's literally
Almost
the
the
literally
exact
the speech
opposite, yeah.
before the atomic bomb and after the atomic bomb. It's his
Yeah.
opinions have changed on like kind of humanity.
good
It kind of
point.
feels like so.
yeah, that's a good point.
Like, because
Yeah,
literally,
huh.
like 1940, the
Yeah,
Great
yeah.
Dictator speech is literally saying like, please do not do anything
Yeah.
ridiculously stupid.
Yeah.
And then 5 years later, we
It's
did something
set-
ridiculously
Yeah.
stupid.
And these movies are 7 years apart, right?
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I honestly think that's what it is, and
Yeah.
I do really like that. Like the message he also says in that. I just think it's a way more cynical message. That's why I like the Great Dictator's speech more.
The Great
but
Dictator,
Oh, yeah.
the Great Dictator speech is a lot more optimistic.
It is.
Yeah.
But see, that's why I like the monster. Like he
Yeah.
realizes soon after, you know,
Mhm.
like just where it was going, kind of thing. Like to me, it doesn't feel like because the Great Dictator one is very honest, especially for the time. Like I was saying, you know,
Yeah.
last week, for the time it is very honest. But this one, to me, even if it almost applies more today, you know, just like some of the biggest companies in the world are
It does.
ammunition manufacturers, you know. And you
It
know,
does, and I mean, you could even use what he's saying just for like companies blaming us for the emissions,
Yes.
and it's like, oh yeah, we're the problem for the emissions, or is it you guys that are doing all this shit? Like, it's
Yeah.
not us. It's,
Yeah.
and that's literally what he's saying in that. It's like it's not the one person doing the one thing that's the problem. It's everyone else. It's like everyone else doing all this big stuff,
It's
killing
all of it.
killing
It's-
millions of people at a time, basically.
Yeah. And literally, because he kind of is accusing everyone, right? Like, literally, the scene in the courtroom, when he literally says, "I'll see you very soon," like almost
Yep.
creepily, but just
Yep,
like
it was,
straightforwardly
yeah.
still. It's like he is accusing everyone,
Mhm.
right? Like the fact that he's made everything feel like a business transaction. You can kind of relate to yourself how you feel in a business world, right? Where you don't really care about anything.
Yeah.
And like it kind of sucks, but like especially living in a first world country, like you don't really know where your products are coming from and who's actually
Yeah.
slaving away and sometimes dying for it, right? You never really know.
No, you don't.
And that's why this movie kind of feels like it makes sense more now. And the great, I don't want to say, especially in the like 2022 where we're living like in America, but that's why I guess I like the Monsieur Verdoux ending more. Really, I guess it applies more today
That's fair.
than the Great Dictator one does, where it's like. Even
Well,
he said he wouldn't make that movie if he had known everything that Hitler had done.
Yeah,
and
the
stuff.
speech still applies.
Yeah,
though.
I still love
the
that.
speech
Okay,
still
yeah.
applies.
It
That's
does,
a timeless.
it does.
That's a
No,
timeless
yeah.
message that
Because
should.
there
that
are some
should apply to
similarities. He
everyone,
like
so.
literally does call out. He like begs the soldiers basically
Yeah.
to like
But
realize
it's-
they're using U.S. machines.
Yeah.
It's hard to compare them to though, still, because I mean, the Great Dictator is more of a call to arms, while Monsieur Verdoux feels more like an assessment of humanity
Alright.
in a way.
It does feel
That's
like that.
kind
in a
of
way.
yeah.
Really, the way I was comparing them is like they do both. He's really just getting his thesis out of the movie, like straightforward,
yeah.
right? The whole.
I mean, he's
Like-
defending himself on trial, so like it's
Yeah.
it's a great ending scene, and it's just a great way for him to like kind of defend his thesis on the movie itself, because he kind of had to defend it with this one bombing.
And okay, and just to close, because we have to talk about the last shot, literally.
Yes.
Like, because the scene ends with him. They offer him a cigarette. I guess back in I don't know if they still do this during executions, but they offer them like
They do, I think.
alcohol and a cigarette
Yeah.
or something, or rum and a cigarette. He rejects the cigarette, and then he rejects the rum at first. And he's like, "Oh wait, I've never tried rum before." And then like he drinks it, and he watching his face this time, he like you can tell he's almost like coming at peace with it. He literally like kind of sighs a little bit.
Yeah.
And then in the Chaplin Today documentary, they mentioned this how. Bazin pointed out, if you watch his walk at the end, he literally limps like the tramp. His left foot is out, and he limps literally like the tramp. like the tramp, the tramp is going to his death, right? Like,
Yeah.
really, in my opinion at least, I'll ask you what you guys think about what that could mean. But in my opinion, it's like this is what killed the tramp, right? Kind of like society, like this is where society's gone to, where the tramp couldn't survive anymore, kind of thing. And you can take it in a few ways. Like you can take it in just the businessification of the world, but it could also just mean what a sound did to the tramp, right?
Yeah.
What sound did to the tramp, especially post World War II.
Yeah.
Where even the tramp got even more outdated, kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But what do you guys like? What do you guys like? Do you guys like that shot? Like,
yeah, I mean it's kind of a different play on the the shot he uses a lot where the tramp's just walking away.
Yes, exactly.
It's
yes.
It's now a different version, like the opposite version of the tramp walking into jail or whatever, or execution.
Literally, because you literally usually when the tramp walks away, you have some kind of hopeful ending, right? Oh, here he goes. He's moving on with life. He's going to his next adventure. But this one is literally like he's ending it. Yeah. Like it's over.
Very. It's a great contrast to all the other ones.
Yes.
I think.
And speaking of an ending of Chaplin, we'll just go right into
Nice.
Maybe his most personal movie in a lot of ways. Especially, we'll get to the ending at the beginning, but no, we'll save that. But we'll just start with Limelight, and we'll start with the hater this time. Luke, what did you think of Limelight?
Let me just point this out for everybody. I logged it on Letterboxd. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars, and not even 5 minutes later, I'm getting roasted in our group chat. Like, okay, so Limelight. I thought this movie was pretty good. All right, it was a pretty good movie, honestly. It's just a movie that, when I was watching it, I was noticing like I should really be loving this a lot more than I am. But it's not even a thing where I can point to it really why I didn't love it as much as I did, as much as I wanted to, really. Because I definitely did really like how it was basically a great. Honestly, if this was his last film, I think it would be. I think it would be okay because it does feel like a director's last film, and
he did make it with that in mind.
Yeah. Obviously, he made two more, but it definitely does feel like that, and I do appreciate that. I really like the scene with him and Buster Keaton. I thought that was really cool. But like, if I could point to one aspect of this movie that I wasn't really feeling very much, was the romance aspect of it. And honestly, if you want me to give specifics, I'm probably not going to be able to, because honestly, it was more just a feeling. I just wasn't really into it as much as I'm assuming you two were. Maybe.
I think that's how you're supposed to feel, though, because I think you're not supposed to feel into the romance. Okay. And like, because Chaplin's not into the romance. Like I feel like he says this multiple times, and even like I guess it's his son Sidney Chaplin playing Neville. That's his name, Neville. Yeah, because Neville says you're marrying because you pity him.
Yeah.
And like he knows that, he knows that in the movie that's the only reason she like actually loves him is because he saved her life, and now he's going through the same thing she went through with not feeling not feeling not feeling any human worth really.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting to know, because I think if I rewatch this movie, I'll probably like it more. But I don't know. Maybe I didn't catch this in the right mood. But because
it does feel weird, because Chaplin, every look he gives her is one of like a kind old gentleman giving to like a young girl that doesn't understand life. Yeah. Like that's the look I feel like he's giving her the entire movie. And then she's just the girl that's like she believes she loves him. She actually does believe that. I do think that. But deep down, she knows it's not true, and like he knows that's not true too. That's why everything in this movie hits me really hard.
Yes.
But
I mean, okay, I'll give my overall thoughts later. Let's talk about her too, because she is one of the main obviously aspects of the movie. But in a lot of ways, she represents the kind of at least in my mind, and watching it this time, it really solidified this for me. She represents an old Chaplin having to give away something he loves, right? Which is the young, the Chaplin everyone loved, right? The clown that everyone loved. But she, and that's why, like, even he loves her. Like, that's what makes it so confusing, right? You can tell, like, in a certain way, they could just end up together, right? And they could kind of make it work, right? Like, he never shows them, either of them, in bad light toward each other. But at the same time, you understand what he's saying, where it's like, he should be giving her just literally his son, right? Like that's why the son makes that's what makes the son casting actually interesting too, right? It makes it part of the movie. And what really made this clear to me this time was, I don't know if you remember the scene where they're talking together in the room, and he like walks up to the window and he starts talking about how what their future life is going to be like with her and the piano player, and he's like, this is inevitable and everything.
Yep.
And watching this time, he's literally telling you the ending right there, right? Because he wrote the movie, and he's the one saying, he's basically Chaplin in the movie, you know, and he literally wrote it. And so when he's telling you what the ending's going to be, like watching it this time, actually knowing what the ending's going to be, it makes sense, right? Like he's literally telling you right there, it's inevitable. And he keeps saying this over and over again, and it's like, if you were watching a typical melodrama, you would be like, you don't want to believe him. Of course he's going to say it's inevitable, and then they'll end up together, right? But in this one, he keeps saying it, and then it is inevitable, right? Like the son and the girl end up together.
Well, maybe.
And that,
but yeah.
They do.
They do.
I mean,
they were dating, kind of. But
okay, it's inevitable. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's inevitable. But what makes this great is it's kind of that honest aspect of, and that's why I think she represents the younger Chaplin, that giving up, right? Because he knows, you can't keep that, you can't be that Chaplin forever in the public's eye.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a great shot, before we get to the rest of the movie, I want to mention, because it's really interesting that you mentioned that, how the romance didn't get to you. Like, I'm not get to you, or...
I just wasn't into it,
yes,
you know?
Yes. And I think that's, like Blake said, that's really on purpose.
Yeah.
I'm glad you pointed
that out. That's a fair
because,
point, yeah. I didn't think about that, really.
Because there's a shot, literally, right when... Okay, and it's a great point in the movie, too, because he has just come back from bombing on the stage, right? And he's already given her a few speeches of, you have to have hope, you have to live for the future. He then bombs on the stage for the first time. And he comes back, and they're talking about it, and then that's when she starts saying, she's the one that starts giving him the hopeful speech.
Yeah.
Right? And that's literally the passing, like you could say passing of the torch, right?
Yep.
And then she starts to walk in that scene, and that scene literally ends with her standing up, and there's a picture of young Chaplin, a real young Chaplin on the wall right next to her, right? And he literally shows them together, and that's it. And that's how he ends the scene.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just me pointing out that point where he's trying to make, like, she represents both at the same time, like, his younger self, but also him letting go for the future, right? And we're going to talk about the ending. But
yeah, we will.
That's how I feel about the ending. But, you know, because it's so hard to talk about a Chaplin movie without mentioning the ending first, which is weird because, but that's the thing, his ending sticks so much. But before we get to that, what else comes to you guys' mind when you think of Limelight?
I mean, just the fact of him, like, it is his swan song. Like, that's why it is so weird that he made 2 movies after this, because this literally does feel like a swan song where he should have ended. I mean, we haven't seen his last 2 movies, obviously, but I'll watch them eventually.
I've seen descriptions.
I'll watch them. I'll watch them.
I've seen descriptions of both of them, but honestly, yeah, it's just.
I mean, Marlon Brando's in one of them.
Okay. Weird. The King of New York.
Yeah, the last one. Yeah.
No, I thought that was the Countess from Hong Kong.
Oh, Countess. That's the one.
Oh, that's the one he's in. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I love that
like,
fact.
It is still true. This is what it would make more sense if those 2 movies were before the
yes.
Yeah.
Because like this movie, it really is like you said, it is Chaplin. It's not Calvero. It's Chaplin. Like like, and you're supposed to feel that, and he makes you feel that.
Yeah, and I like how autobiographical it is, like for his career at the time, because like didn't like Monsieur Verdoux bomb?
Yes.
And you know, he also I kind of like when directors do the autobiographical. It's why I like Fellini's 8.5 so much.
Yeah.
Like I just love the autobiographical aspect of it.
Yeah. Tarkovsky as well.
Yeah, that's too.
No, and I do like the hope in this. Like this is like, it's kind of weird that like so Monsieur Verdoux is him like being super cynical about humanity, and to this one, at least in the first half, he's back to being not cynical at all, with like his quotes like his quotes like life is a desire, not a meaning, and stuff like that.
Yes,
like young girl like you wanting to throw your life away, when you're my age you want to hang on with it, and stuff like that. Like he just it feels like his perception on life has kind of changed in his older age. But then like once he does bomb again, he is back to being that cynical old man until the ending, or until like not the ending, but like until he becomes true to himself, because he says that's all he has left in his life. And that's why I really do like the messages he's giving throughout this entire movie. Like being true to who you are is like, actually it's important, and you shouldn't have to get to 60s to figure that out, like Chaplin did in this movie. Or like most people do. Like most people don't realize that you should just be true to yourself your entire life, because it is something that comes with old age. But
okay, let me ask you this, because in that scene where he says I want to be true to myself is when he says they can't be together because it would be false. So why do you think that for him to be true to himself, that he thinks they can't be together?
Because it is false. Because he is only have like a few years left, and at
And
that
because,
point,
because
less
he
than a few,
because he
you know.
can tell it's the pity thing.
Yes, I think that's the reason why. Is because he knows it's
Yeah.
not real. I think it's because for him it could probably be real, but for her it would never be real, because like she told him her love story before she left
Yeah.
him. Like after she woke up. Like he asked what's something that makes you, or what were you doing before that? I can't remember the exact question, but whenever she tells him about the music store and the sheet music, and whenever she meets Neville for the first time,
Yeah.
and that's whenever Charlie realized, or Calvero, that's whenever he realized that this is who she really loves, and he always sees through the pity, and that's what it is. I mean, it is pity,
And
because it's hard whenever you know someone's a famous star in their young life, and now they can't do anything because it's just like time's passed them by. Literally, it's why Sunset Boulevard's so good too. It's just
another
because,
Keaton, right? Doesn't Keaton show
is
up in
Keaton in
that?
that one? I don't know actually.
He might be in a scene in that movie.
It's one of how I know it's. I don't remember the movie.
Oh no, Cecile D. Bamille. Wait, actually no.
She's the main.
I'll try to
actress,
find it, but
No, he's the director who played the butler, who was also a director, who directed the actor that played the main girl. You know, they're talking about how. Never mind. I don't want to get too into Sunset Boulevard, but I don't think he was actually in Sunset Boulevard. Now I think about it.
I'm not sure. I don't
think
remember
he is.
him being in Sunset Boulevard. But
He's in.
he is.
Oh,
he's
he
in
is?
Sunset
Okay.
Boulevard.
Yeah, there's a YouTube clip.
He's also
because Eric von Stroheim's in it too.
Yeah. That's through the. Not Cecile D. Bamille. I think
Billy Wilder.
But
Sunset
he's
Boulevard.
also Keaton's also a cameo in a Stanley Kramer movie. It's a Mad World. I don't know.
I didn't know that.
Interesting. he's just in like a scene where he's like a garage
I did not know
guy.
Get your money.
Get your money.
No, but anyway, that does relate to this movie if you haven't seen it, because
Yeah.
Buster Keaton is in this movie.
Yeah.
But it relates to what you were talking about before we went on that huge tangent.
The huge tangent.
About this time
Life
passing
passing
you by.
by.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Like, or it's not like life
or
passing by. It's just like
accepting
changing.
it.
It's
Accept-
just
the
the
acceptance
audience
of
is
it.
changing, and
Yes.
he can't change with it anymore.
Yeah.
And if you know someone's like that, and you know how big they were, especially someone like Chaplin, who was literally the biggest thing in like in the movie industry, you just feel pity. Like even if you don't want to, you feel it in yourself. Like it's something like you watch Harrison Ford or something now. You know, like he sucks
Force
at acting
Awakens.
now.
Force okay, yeah.
What? What's the last good Harrison
I don't-
Ford movie that's come out?
Okay,
he was in that
Blade
dog
Runner-
movie like 3
You can
years
argue
ago.
he's always been a kind of overrated actor.
But honestly,
that's
like,
for a different
he's-
reason.
I'm just saying someone that's a massive star.
I don't think his choices are bad. Honestly, like Blade Runner 2049.
No, that's true. Yeah.
That's good, but like I just think he's cashing out for the check now.
Oh
Honestly.
yeah.
Like it's just like Scorsese might be like one of the only people that's lasted his whole career and just stayed the same. Like been consistent banger in America at least.
But even he would admit his movies have definitely changed since he was
Yes,
making
they have, for
Goodfellas
sure.
or Raging Bull or even
Yes.
Mean Streets.
Yeah, but
like there's no way a young Scorsese was making Silence.
no.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe.
I mean, he did make
maybe
Temptation of Christ.
Maybe
so
not when he was using
The Last
coke.
Temptation of
Using
Christ.
coke all the time, but maybe after that.
Okay.
I don't know, I just really like that fact because I do think Calvero always sees through her. It's not even fake love because she does love him. It's just not the love she thinks it is.
Okay, and related to that, because I really hadn't even thought about this scene in that way, but do you remember when she's talking to the theater director right before he's about to have his he's last performance?
The cue card.
And he's like, "Oh, don't worry, the audience is gonna love him no matter what. They'll have pity on him." And he literally uses the word pity.
He does, yeah.
And you can kind of tell in that scene where she that's where she realizes, because she's like, he doesn't want pity. He wants.
He wants to actually be.
Yes, he wants to actually be a success. But that could apply both to the relationship too, right? Once he could tell it was just mainly based on pity. He knew he had to give that up, right? Because that's not what he wanted, right? He wanted truth, like
exactly.
He says.
And he says that multiple times after that, or during that speech and after also.
Yep. And really, we should kind of just leads in to maybe the best scene in the movie, with Buster Keaton. First, I just love how they're introduced to, like, getting ready, single, like, it's just because did you realize it was Buster Keaton at first with him in the room?
I can't. I think I just
I
like.
think it was your first time watching, right?
I did
Yeah.
just because I looked up who he was because I wanted to know when,
So you
who he
knew
was
it was
going to
in
be.
that movie.
I knew.
Well, I knew he was his partner. I knew,
No, but
I
did
knew
you
it
know?
was his
Did
partner.
you know that was how he was going to be, like, in that? Cause,
How he's going to be dressed?
Because when I watched it this time, I don't think they show his face initially. And then they're talking for a little bit, and then he turns his face, and then it's like, kind of supposed to be a surprise. I thought, but I wasn't sure. If
When I saw his face, I was like,
definitely
okay,
yeah,
that's
when you
Mr.
see his
Keaton.
face.
It's once I saw
But
his
he hides
face,
his face
yeah.
initially. That's what makes it fun. Too,
Okay, yeah, I guess so. I was more focused on Chaplin in the moment. I think.
yeah,
But,
exactly. No, that's part of it too,
Yeah.
right? You're not expecting. Yeah, it's like, his big scene. You're not
Yeah.
expecting Keaton to show up right there, but
It's really cute how he got Keaton to do this because he felt bad for Keaton that he had contract issues with like MGM and stuff, so he basically was like, hey, come be in my movie,
But it fits perfectly in the story too.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, because a lot of what happened to Chaplin in his career happened to Keaton too. Very similar,
for
right?
sure.
Yes.
They're literally the two greatest film pantomimists in film history.
Silent
basically.
actors.
Silent. Okay. Yeah. Maybe the two most famous, but yeah.
I mean, come on.
I guess I haven't seen enough silent movies to be like.
It's the big three. It's the big three of Keaton, Chaplin, and Lloyd in America.
Yeah,
so.
well, yeah.
That's fair. Yeah.
No, but they probably are the two most famous though.
Two most recognizable.
Yes,
I feel
yeah.
like.
Yeah.
But either way, their career arcs are the themes are very similar through both theirs, right?
Yeah.
Like we've been saying, like an audience that gave up on them, kind of passed them by. But that's what makes this scene so perfect, right? It's like their one last hurrah, and it kind of makes sense. The scene itself actually kind of plays to that too, where they literally can't get the music started at first, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
they literally can't get the music started when they're trying to do it. But I just love it because it's 8 minutes. I'm pretty sure, like 7 or 8 minutes.
It's like a little short in the middle of the movie.
Yeah. It's a little short. No dialogue, right?
Yeah.
It's a little silent.
It's a
short right
silent
in the
short,
middle.
literally.
It's basically like a one-reeler almost. Do you guys like? Okay, do you guys agree with me? It's a great scene.
Oh, I
Yeah,
thought it was
yeah,
hilarious.
okay.
I was laughing. I was laughing the entire time.
I don't know. What do you guys like about it? I said what I thought about it because I think it kind of wraps up.
I mean,
the movie well.
I just like how he incorporated I love the backstory on why he incorporated Keaton. To be honest, that's what I like most about the scene. To be honest, but
So you don't like the actual bits? Like
they were good too. Obviously,
Okay.
I love that part more.
No,
The
that's-
leg bit was hilarious.
It's so awesome to see like these two they were almost seen as rivals throughout their career, but then for in their heyday they finally joined up together, and it was kind of a special.
Not in their
moment, I feel
heyday.
like.
After their heyday.
Maybe Chaplin's heyday, not in terms of quality movies, but
To cinephile. Not at the time.
okay, no, I know what you mean, yeah. But yeah, that's why I kind of like the scene itself, though. Like, it's kind of underplayed,
Yeah.
It's not like over the top comedy. It just, it's like so simple, right?
Yeah.
It's like it would have been one of Chaplin's like middle shorts, kind of. That's how it feels like. And related to the backstory, like apparently they just spent 2 days by themselves just workshopping what they were going to do for this.
To be a fly on the wall in that moment.
Yes,
like, oh
but
my
literally
goodness, yeah.
how Chaplin used to make a lot of his shorts. Just in the moment thinking about it, right?
Yeah. And I mean, this one is similar to the Vagabond too, so I kind of like that. Or at least his
haven't seen
violin
that
playing.
one.
His violin playing is the exact same. Like the overacting violin playing is hilarious. Because it kind of also feels like this is the one scene that the studio wanted to cut, or not the studio, but like the place they were like performing at, the art house that they were performing at, was wanting to cut because they had 15 other acts to follow, and this is the encore.
Yeah.
It's just like fitting that was the Keaton
That is a good
Chaplin
point.
one. That was the
yeah,
encore.
like even in
That
the
was about to
story,
get
why does
cut.
he save the Keaton one for the encore that
Yeah.
he might not have been able to do, right?
Yeah,
That's literally what this scene was in real life. Like they might not have been able to do it ever,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
it's funny.
Oh man, it works on a lot of levels too. But and just the fact that that's the scene that concludes with how he literally goes out.
Yeah,
He literally dies. The fact that he, just to be truthful to himself, he does still drink alcohol at the end.
Yep.
And that's what leads to his death, right, with the heart attack. Because he kind of mentions earlier that that's why he had to stop drinking in the first place, was because he was having heart attacks. Or he had a heart attack, I think, for like 6 months or something.
It was something. Yeah, it was a heart problem.
So, just the fact that even in that kind of like he kind of knew almost like similar to Monsieur Verdoux, like he knew his ending.
No,
like,
these are very similar movies, or like they're kind of similar. I don't want to say very similar because they are they're very different also, but about completely
Great
different
analysis,
things.
Like,
But
like you've seen the movies, it makes sense.
they're very similar, but they're very different.
But yeah, I see what you're saying.
No, it's just a cynicism kind of coming through in some
It's-
parts.
it's
But
more
at
like-
the very end of this,
honestly,
it's not a cynicism. It's back to him
Monsieur-
being the tramp.
Yeah,
kind of.
I was saying, Monsieur Verdoux is more of like an ending to the Tramp character, while
See, I think
Limelight's
this
more of
is
an ending to
Chaplin in general.
Chaplin in general. That's
Yeah.
what I felt. Yeah.
But I do love
Okay,
how he
yes,
goes
yes,
back to
yes.
being like the tramp in this movie also.
That's true,
Because
yeah,
he
he
does
does.
literally become the tramp. It's like
Yeah.
he's the tramp comedian. He literally calls himself he's like, maybe it's the tramp in me. Like, he's like, maybe I like working the streets.
Oh,
maybe
yes,
it's the
that's
tramp
a
in
great
me.
line, yes.
Yeah, because whenever he meets Neville and the guy again.
Yeah.
And he's playing a banjo too, right?
Yeah, a band.
Walking the streets playing a banjo.
Oh my goodness, dude.
And but really, we can just we can end it there. Like, what's your overall thoughts? Because next week.
Well, we shouldn't end it there. We should actually end it with the ending.
Yeah, the ending. We
Oh,
talked about the
yeah.
ending, yeah.
Like, it's like I never
Oh,
thought
yes. Oh
I
my
never
gosh,
thought
how
I
did-
never thought
okay,
I'd cry
yes,
in a
yes.
Chaplin movie, and like the last 3, 4, 5 minutes of this movie, I was like literally in tears. So
That's fair. That's fair.
No, because I want to talk about the kind of describe it almost because the way it ends is he's accepted his death, like how I mentioned earlier. I should have just kept going, but he accepted his death, but he wants to see her perform literally one last time, right? And it's kind of just
like, doctor, I believe I'm dying.
yes. And so they take him out there, and he basically just dies watching her perform. And I just love the kind of like, at least my thoughts going through that watching it this time was, I've mentioned it throughout this review, where he sees both his past, self, where he was, in his heyday, the young. The Tramp doesn't have an age, but he was young making a lot of these movies,
Yes,
right? In his
yeah.
20s and 30s, really. He sees that, but he also is willing to accept it. Like, this is where art has to move on.
Yes.
This kind of thing. You can't say that it can't be your comedy forever, almost, right?
This world
And just in
doesn't
that
belong
one
just to
single-
you.
Yes. And in the Chaplin Today documentary on Criterion, they mention how what they literally pull over him, like what it's supposed to be normally a sheet you would pull over someone, it's literally a movie screen that they cover him with on his death. And then it's literally like, it's definitely got to be one of my favorite Chaplin shots, along with like the City Lights one. It's probably a top 2, where it's the whole time the camera's been showing him just on his bed, and it's been that for a while, but then all of a sudden it just pans out really fast and it shows her dancing,
Yep.
just like in one shot, and then he goes away. So like the first time you see her in the shot, he's gone, right? And then you see her dancing, and then it cuts finally to her in wide shot just dancing in front of the camera, and then it ends.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing ending.
It's
like,
a beautiful ending. Because the score playing over it just like ties everything together. Like that score. The score is great throughout the entire movie, but at the very end, whenever she's dancing to him dying, basically, that's literally what actually got me like actually crying, kind of ugly crying somewhat. I wasn't
that's
ugly
a compliment,
crying.
though.
It was, yeah. But I wasn't actually ugly crying, but I did shed more tears than I thought I would in this movie. So
it's kind of just a perfect title, honestly. Now,
was
describes it. But what do you, Luke? Do you
I thought it was a good ending. Yeah,
Okay,
honestly, yeah.
want to say?
Honestly, I think the main parts I wasn't as enjoying as much was more the middle part. I think the whole like ending sequence I was
Yeah,
I was into
by
it.
that point. I mean, we've all been going through Chaplin so much lately. Like,
yeah.
It'd be hard to be a fan of Chaplin and not
It's
like
hard to
that,
like
you know?
you have to have like a stone cold heart to not like that, honestly. But yeah.
But that's what I kind of love, where we're talking about how much we love the ending, but we talked about him dying. The woman and him don't get together. Like all in a typical story structure, like
on paper it should.
On paper,
yeah,
yes, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
On paper, you should not love the ending. You'd be like,
But it's just
kind of
beautiful.
yes, and that part of it is because we're watching it knowing who Chaplin was. We've seen him grow as basically a person.
Yeah. Like imagine
Throughout his
this
movies.
was like your first Chaplin movie, like
It would not make sense.
Yeah, not at all. I mean,
No, and really, because that's a good way to close this. Because when I mentioned at the beginning, what made me want to choose this series, these 2 movies, and that's why really, because like basically didn't indoctrinate you guys in Chaplin, so then you guys would love. You have to like these movies.
You'd have to like these movies.
But really, it's like how such a different there's such different types of movies in terms of their form, in terms of compared to obviously the silent movies, but at the same time, like we've just been talking about with Limelight, you really feel those movies in this movie still, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of definitely talking about the French New Wave, but it'll be a theme definitely throughout this podcast of feeling the director's work, personality, or their authorship, no matter what kind of movie they were making, no matter how old they were, just all those different kind of factors, and that's what I love. Like these movies still proves that, right? And both of them in their own ways, like how Blake said, they're similar, but they're also really
similar,
different.
but they're really different.
And it makes sense.
It's like honestly, what makes them very similar is the endings because they're both dying true to themselves. Like this
They've
is
accepted their fate.
They've accepted their fate.
Yeah. but that's what A Woman in Paris is about,
It is, yes.
right? I mean, those characters kind of struggle with it until the end, but that's a Chaplin theme.
It is.
So, yeah, so we won't go too much into
I really
concluding
also
our
do.
thoughts
I
on
really
Chaplin.
do like this one. Sorry, just before we
Okay.
end, I really do like how he does. This also kind of plays into the circus, where it kind of just plays into kind of like just Chaplin the Tramp character of giving the woman away whenever he knows that's what's for the best. Like,
the circus, yes, with Rex,
Yeah.
the tightrope walker.
yeah,
Oh,
it's just another little connection
Yeah.
of just like this is the Tramp, you know, it's just Chaplin. Like it's not even
Yeah.
the Tramp, it's just Chaplin. Like the
At
Tramp
the end of the
is
day, the Chaplin was the one making the decisions for the
Yes,
Tramp, right?
yes.
And really, that's why we loved him so much.
It is. Yeah.
And I guess that's a good point because that's why I love these movies, right? It's the same decision maker.
It is.
Making these choices as well. Okay, but yeah, before we get too involved into concluding our thoughts on Chaplin, that's what I was going to get to. Was next week we're going to conclude our thoughts on Chaplin. We've spent basically a month on him now,
Mhm.
so we haven't come up with all the exact questions yet, but we're probably going to maybe answer 5 key questions about the Chaplin's movies, and we'll see where the discussion takes us from there. So. Any last thoughts on these 2 movies? No.
Watch him. It's easy.
Yeah, they're both on
Watch
Criterion.
them.
Well, they're on Criterion. I just said watch him in general because it's
watch
super
him,
easy to
okay.
watch him. It's just super easy to watch him in general, and it's super
yeah.
easy to find his
Watch
movies.
them in order as well. I think is
Yes,
very
yes.
important too.
At least his features.
Yeah,
The
that's
shorts
why-
you can watch whatever.
Yeah, shorts, it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
features definitely
You're
watch
right.
them in order.
Although the shorts do count, it does somewhat matter also because I watched like
But-
the first national ones, or I
Right.
watched like the bank before watching like his or like the new janitor or something. And those movies are they're the exact same thing kind of.
He's building on the idea.
Yeah, he's building on
If
it.
you
He's just
watch
making
the-
them better as he
But
goes
yeah,
through. So.
I guess so.
But we'll get to that more next
Yeah,
week.
we can, yeah.
Yeah, because we'll have to answer favorite shorts, so you'll have to
Yeah,
remember
for
that
sure.
next week.
Yeah.
Think of one. Maybe if it's changed since because we did do that question on the
I think
first one. So.
I don't know if it has changed. Yeah,
But-
okay.
Until next time, hope to see you floating in through the clouds.
When I was 3, my nurse told me about reincarnation. And ever since I've been convinced, thrilled with anticipation, that when I leave this earth, it makes my heart feel warm to know that I'll return in some other form. But I don't want to be a tree sticking in the ground. I'd sooner be a flea. I don't want to be a flower waiting by the hour, hoping for pollens to alight on me. So when I cease to be, I want to go back, I want to go back, I want to go back to the sea. Oh, for the life of a sardine, that is the life for me. Cavorting and spawning every morning under the deep blue sea. To have no fear for storm nor gale, oh, to chase the tail of a whale. Oh, for the life of a sardine, that is the life for me.